All right, there you go. Live
Hi,
from
everyone.
Niagara Falls. It's Kung Fu
Live from my Apple device.
Thursday. Thanks for joining us for
Episode
Teriyaki
6.
episode 6. No, it's supposed to be episode 7.
Oh, right.
Whoops. Okay, we'll change it later. Oh, can you
7.
change it live?
I don't know.
Save. Okay.
7.
Episode 7 of Teriyaki to Thursday. We're going to talk about the three-legged stool of holistic Kung Fu today, what that means. And these are 3 pillars of self-cultivation that we teach in the holistic Kung Fu system and how they bring about change and success and development for the practitioner, right?
Yes. And the three-legged stool falls down without.
Right.
all
So I
the
wanted to
legs.
change the name, and Gibbons was like, no, three-legged stool is the way it's got to be because without one leg it falls over. And so we have to keep it. We have to keep it as three-legged stool. So that's what it is. So what are they? What are these three? These
what are
three
they?
pillars.
Are
So the way we break them down, we'll break them down today. They are
Can
the
you,
act.
can you write them right there so I can see, just in case I forget,
Okay.
and say them out loud as you do it?
Okay. Let me see if I got on the page here. This is my act. This is my today.
Just
to-do
write them
list.
really small.
Here. This is my page of the day, and I'm going to ruin it now. Okay.
Activity.
The activity that you actually do, right? The activity, whether it's Kung Fu, whether it's yoga, whether it's skipping, whether it's interpretive dance, whatever it is you're excited about that you're going to do that is the flavor of the week for you, that's going to drive change, that's the activity. Okay, now what we want to do in holistic Kung Fu is we want to stretch out our time perspective and use this activity for a long time, not just for a week, but for a long time so we can get major lifestyle change and long-term improvement in our health and our mindset and our focus and our ability to handle stress and everything, right? But the activity, interchangeable, but you need an activity there, something you're going to do, and it's got to be something you're inspired to do and something you're excited about, right?
Okay.
The second pillar after the activity has to be the habit. And then the third pillar is the self-image. And if you guys are fans of, if you're watching, and if you're in our program and you would have read, if you're in our intermediate program, you would have read psycho-cybernetics, so you know that when we say self-image, that's interchangeable with the servo mechanism. Those are used interchangeably, right? But
Please comment, let us know if you're watching.
yeah, and if you are watching, please give us a thumbs up, put something in the comment section, even if it's just a meow. That's fine too, just to engage with the video, and that way Facebook likes us more. Okay.
Also, we all want to see who's watching.
And we want to see who's watching. Can't you see by going on the thing? I think that's only on the phone.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
fine.
All right. So activities. Well, what activities have obviously Kung Fu has been very inspiring for a long time for both of us. What are some activities that you get inspired to do other than Kung Fu?
Arts and crafts.
Arts and crafts. Okay.
What about you?
Well, I like Kung Fu.
You like making videos.
Yeah, like video editing is fun.
Yeah.
I like editing, making videos.
Meow.
Thanks, Chris. There you go. Meow. I like making videos. I like Kung Fu. I like teaching people. I like reading. I like talking about just...
Cooking.
Oh, cooking! Yeah, we made pizza yesterday, homemade pizza.
nice.
Yeah, me and Riley made it. It was a team effort, and it turned out fantastic. I got some here. I brought some in because we made a lot of it. Cooking is a lot of fun. I do like cooking, and what I like about cooking is that how much emotional content goes into cooking. Like it's not
Is that
know.
like a man way to say love? It's a secret ingredient.
Well, I guess so, yeah. But if I'm cooking, like I never get upset when I'm cooking something. Like if something's not going right,
Yeah.
I never have that problem. Like, this is too much of this, too little of that. Dang it, this isn't the right spot. I always find I'm in a good flow state.
Yeah, high five! Oh, wait, you're not supposed to do that.
I always find I'm in a good flow state when I'm cooking, so it's never like a thing that I'm upset about. That's a very fun activity, and I like that. Homemade pizza, I like making sushi, I like making,
Tomato sauce.
and tomato sauce, and homemade sauce.
Sifu makes his own crust, his own sauce.
Completely homemade
procures
pizza. Yeah.
the most
Well, other
amazing
than that, the
ingredients.
tomatoes aren't from the garden. I have to
Yeah.
buy whole tomatoes, but that's as
That's okay.
close as I can get to actually homemade. Yeah. Until summer, if I get some good tomatoes in the garden, then we'll do completely from scratch. But
Oh.
anyway, so that's what's another example of an activity?
Like, aside from like arts and crafts, music. Some people make music.
Yep.
Some people go on nature walks.
Mhm.
Some people build websites.
Mhm.
Some people, it's like anything that gets you in the flow state.
And those are all different types of kung fu too, right? You
Yeah,
say like kung fu literally means the skill that you acquire after time and sacrifice. It's not exclusive to martial
I
arts.
was listening to Rise of Superman in the car, and they were talking about what's that's caused by. So like, when you have skill, it's a different part of your brain. It's not, you don't think about it so much in the prefrontal cortex. Like they were looking at chess players,
Hmm.
and when people are playing chess, they're not using their prefrontal cortex. They're using their, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like they're using a hunch. Oh, they okay, they don't, so it's not as conscious. It's not like they're not thinking, should I do this or should I do that? They've internalized it through experience. So it's called implicit consciousness or explicit consciousness. But you're not thinking so much because you practice so much. You're relying on experience and skills. So that was like another way to say kung fu. So kung fu is like the skill that you put where you don't have to think so much anymore. Like you just do it because you have experience.
Yeah.
You've internalized it.
That's a good point. So that regardless of whatever it is, that's the
Yeah,
kung
so it
fu.
can
That's
be
the
anything.
activity. So
Yeah.
anything, but it's going to, and you can't engage in that activity without. Once you're doing it to that degree, it becomes an art of self-cultivation.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we use that term self-cultivation all the time in kung fu, because you can't dedicate yourself to any task without it having improvement on your overall character, right? And your discipline and the way and your confidence in the way you see the world, right? So that activity, that being the first pillar, that's really important. You've got to get something that you're actually excited about and passionate about doing, because the passion is going to help you. You know, when you're not good at it yet, right? Like this skill you're talking about, when things just glide along because you've got the experience, that's like a plane cruising at cruising altitude, right? It takes energy, but not a lot of energy.
Oh, that's the other thing.
Right?
It takes way less energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, when you're at the beginning, a lot of the fuel gets burnt up
Yeah.
getting up into the atmosphere, right? So it's the same thing with the activity. You need that passion that you have for it isn't always going to be there, but it doesn't always need to be there. It needs to be there at the beginning to get you up to cruising altitude, right? Like when you started Kung Fu, how exciting was that when everything was new and everything? It's still exciting, but it was like
Yeah.
when it was new and shiny, right?
I don't know, Kung Fu, I find it still new and exciting because there's so much
Yeah,
to
that's
learn.
true.
But like, I think it's important to always challenge yourself. Like when it starts to get to that cruising altitude, you set a little bit of a higher goal, right? That
Yeah.
keeps the passion going.
But when you start though,
Oh,
you're
it's
inevitably
like-
going to
yeah.
suck at it,
Yeah.
and you need to have the enthusiasm to just keep you going anyway, even though you see no skill yet at all, right? So
Yeah.
that enthusiasm has to be there, which is why I'm saying it's got to be something that you like and enjoy,
Yeah.
right?
And it's the instructor's job to make it, the person, show them that they are developing skill too, right? Like, they need the feedback that they are doing it right, and that, because if it's just exciting but it's too overwhelming, then you get discouraged.
Yeah, that also that kind of goes into self-image a little bit too. The other pillar, like
Yeah,
what we were
that's-
talking about,
yeah.
right? Is so the instructor's job is outside of and necessary for all three of these pillars to happen,
true, yeah.
right? But we'll talk about that, how the instructor is relevant and important for every step, for the activity itself, for developing the habit, and for self-image. And a good teacher, a good instructor, will work on all three of those, just like a good practitioner will work on all three. And it requires the success of the practitioner and the instructor or teacher to be focusing on all three of those. So for example, if you've got an instructor that is really great at teaching the activity and really good at pounding those habits in so your behavior is constantly improving, but puts you down and calls you names all the time and says you suck, you're not going to follow
Yeah.
through on that. You'll leave this guy's a jerk because he's
Yeah.
not focusing on building up that self-image, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, if someone is, instructors your cheerleader telling you how great you are all the time, the activity's good, but they're not conditioning your habits so you train it on your own, then you're not going to be good either because you haven't done the consistent practice on your own, right? So the instructor is an integral part of this. What about, okay, so anyway, go on. Anything else to say on activity?
For activities, so it's just something you're excited about. It's the vessel that you want to take to your self-cultivation, right? You can have multiple vessels that you do also.
So even though we're saying it's a three-legged stool, you need all three, I would say that the activity is kind of like the starting point. Do you agree with that? So you've got to pick
Yeah.
something that you want to do that you're enthusiastic about.
I think it's maybe for some people that's the easiest part. For some people, not so much. Like the people that don't know what they're passionate about yet might have a hard time. For people that do know what they're passionate about, that might be the easiest part.
Well, I think it's easy because a lot of the times this comes from an external source, right? So like when you, you'll see something, you'll watch a movie. Oh, well, chess, for example.
yeah.
Chess, right?
Or like the
How
Queen-
many
the
people want to
Queen's
be?
Gambit?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to play chess now, right?
Yeah.
Sale of chessboards has like gone through the roof because the Queen's Gambit
Yeah.
made chess look so cool. So that's an external, activation for that activity. So that's an example. So a lot of times it can be something external. It doesn't have to be something internal, but you're still going to be motivated, after watching the Queen's Gambit, right? For example, for when I went to see Rumble in the Bronx, Mom took me to see that in the
that was
theater.
your thing?
That was my thing for like kung fu specifically. Like when I saw Jackie Chan beat up those guys in the grocery store and say like, "That's Chinese kung fu." Like from that moment on, I don't remember how old I was. I was pretty young, but from that moment on, it was like, yeah, that was the drive I needed. So that was an external factor too. So, but sometimes a lot of times
There's
it does
that
come
spark.
inside.
Yeah.
So whether it's internal, external, it's there. There's got to be some excitement there that gets you moving though. So now, if that were the second step, if activity was the first step, then I think habit could be the second. Or you could even do habit and self-image interchangeably. Either one could be second. But let's say for argument's sake, if someone's wanting to figure out how to apply holistic kung fu to improving their lifestyle, whatever it is, whether it's actual kung fu or some other kind of activity, I would say the first step would be to pick your activity and find out what you're passionate about. The second step would be to start cultivating a habit around it.
So is the habit is that consistency? Is that another interchangeable
Yeah,
way to
because
say it? Because activity is like the practice, right?
yeah, but the activity you're going to do it when you're motivated to do it. But like I said, the motivation is going to help get you off the ground. The motivation isn't going to keep you doing it.
Right.
Right? So in order to keep you doing it, you're going to need conditioned behavior. So,
Okay.
For example, you wake up in the morning. What are the first 3 things you do when you wake up in the morning?
Are you actually asking me?
Yeah, just an example. If you don't want to share personal details, then say what a regular person would.
A regular person, maybe they would, like the first 3 things, I don't know, they'd probably look at their phone or probably put on the coffee and, I don't know,
Coffee is a good example.
Yeah.
Okay, most people can probably comment below with the heck yeah if you can make your coffee or tea in the morning, barely opening your eyes,
yeah.
like without even thinking, you can like put the coffee in the pot.
like
Look at all these. Sorry, we've got to scroll down
so
here and
great
see
to
these
hear you
comments.
say what?
To say
What
that,
did I
Ms.
say?
Gibbons. Well, it was 4 minutes ago. We
Okay.
could have been talking about anything 4 minutes ago. We got to pay attention to the scroll here.
Would doing the activity become habit form which improves self-image? Yes and no. We'll talk about that. Drink water, make my bed. Okay, so we're pretty caught up.
Hold on, wait one minute. Well, they're all interchangeable. So the one will affect the other two, right? So making my bed. So by now, if you're making your bed every morning, you probably do that without thinking about it, right? It's conditioned.
Without it. It's that blind man. Coffee.
But those behaviors are conditioned. You don't have to think, oh, I have to make the coffee. What do I have to do? I have to get the grinds. I got to pour this much water. Like you just sleep your way through it. That's conditioned behavior, right? That behavior is conditioned. When it's morning, it's time to go, and the coffee gets put on.
Yeah.
Now you've conditioned that behavior because your coffee is like your first point of like bliss. Oh, I have my coffee now. Everything else can happen now. Yeah, oops. Everything else can happen now that I've got the coffee made, right?
About kung fu still being new and
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, very good. Good point. Thank you. Still as exciting.
Yeah.
But once you've got the coffee made, you've had this you've got this gratification, this dopamine hit associated with that coffee. So you've conditioned that
And
behavior.
the way that people talk about their coffee is like
It's
It
religious.
feels like private. It's like they're like, and I feel the cup,
Yeah.
and everything's still, and like I can smell it. It's like all your five. Okay, it's like
And-
get a room.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
you know it has nothing. Well, okay, it has a lot to do with the actual chemicals in the coffee that make it addicting, but it's like, that's a lot of times, that's the only time people set aside for themselves. Like Mrs. Audette was saying about, in her class the other day, about getting to work early so she could drink her coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just about the coffee, it was about that time to yourself. And a lot of times people...
And that moment of control. You have
Yeah.
control over
Yeah.
that, and everything else is blocked out, and that is your time. No
Yeah.
one invade this coffee bubble, or else you're going to feel a wrath.
Yeah.
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 I get that. And the coffee memes on the internet. Mr. Gaudette has a lot of funny coffee
Yeah.
memes. Every day he's got memes about how coffee is like, oh, they're funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. But that behavior is conditioned, right? It's and yeah, like the caffeine is addictive, but it's not that. It's really more about the habit, right? And the association of feelings around that habit. So when the behavior is conditioned, you can't miss it. So now how can we take that and how can we apply that to the new activity that we want to do? Okay.
Yeah.
And that starts with habit. Again, it starts with, like, to get that coffee habit, you didn't have to go to work at it. It wasn't like you had to work half hour a day at it, right? It only took 5 minutes. It was consistent. Now it's automatic. So what small thing can you do in the morning that you can pat yourself on the back for, give yourself positive reinforcement for, and then it'd be automatic, right?
I mean, making the bed is a big one because you get that, especially before you do anything else, that really gives you a hit of dopamine because, like, the ritual, yeah, that's really important in the morning because I think no matter what your morning routine is, if it's like sacred to you. So if you don't get to do it, if it gets disturbed somehow, you get hangry about it or something. Like if I don't get to make my bed, like I have to make my bed before I leave my room to go to the bathroom because my cat will come and lay in my bed, and then I feel like an asshole for disturbing her. Am I allowed to say that on this? And then, and so I know like I have to do that to get that hit. And I look at my bed and it's all made, my window's open. I'm like, oh yes, and then I leave my bed, and then it's like, wow.
But she got like the ritual. She's funny. I feel embarrassed now. I think she means about. You mean you're embarrassed about what?
About the coffee
thing?
How intimate it is? Yes,
the intimacy
exactly.
with the coffee. It's okay.
Who needs
it's
a
common.
partner? Just get a cup of coffee.
But since you're the ritual, when you call it a ritual, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Because then you've really integrated it. It's not just a habit, but
and you're
rituals.
fully like engrossed in it too. Like
Yeah, and it puts you in that moment.
that's actually
Right.
it's like you're mindful. You're not distracting from it. You want to experience the pouring of the coffee. It's like the tea ceremony, but it's like coffee. Even if it's just like how you order it in the drive-thru and how you give the person your money or tap your card.
Okay, that's a good point. So you're going to address that because we talked about this. So she's saying, what about when your bed doesn't give you the dopamine anymore? Making your bed, coffee, yes.
Well, what are you doing before you make your
well,
bed?
but
That's part of it too.
This goes back to your sash thing. That's why I was thinking that.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So Miss Gibbons,
Here's the story.
okay. Tell them. Well, let me tell it so we make sure I understand it properly.
Okay, you go ahead.
Because this is the thing is that you want to have that dopamine hit for that thing to connect with it, right? So then it becomes automatic. Well, and we use that 30-day thing. If you do this for 30 days, it becomes a habit. We were talking about this before that like 30 days is kind of a guideline. You could do something for a lot longer and it not be a habit. And I would say that you could do things for 5 days and it could be a habit if the motivation's there and if you've conditioned the behavior properly. 30 days is a rough guideline. It's like nowhere near any kind of rule. And Gibbons is saying that, well, she used to, like, Sifu sequel be like coffee. Thanks, Mr. Henderson. The second book will be like coffee.
Yeah, and I'm making a parody Brie like tea.
Brie like tea, and it's going to be the opposite of the book. Was that what it's going to be? The opposite, or is it going to be like hard?
Spiritual parody
Okay.
of.
So she says that because we here at the school at the end of the day, you're winding down, you're tired, you take your uniform, your jacket off, take your sash off, and Gibbons would like just chuck her sash somewhere.
I don't chuck my sash. I always fold my sash. That is
And then she would leave. Okay, fold it nicely, but then leave it somewhere.
I leave it somewhere different every
So
single day.
what I do a lot of times for the instructors is I just try not to make a fuss about it because everyone's just winding down the end of the day. So I'll just take the stuff and I'll go place it in their locker, right? Nicely. So the challenge one year was like for Gibbons that I'm going to put my sash away all on my own. I'm going to make it a habit.
I did it every single day for
For
an
a year.
entire year. I did not miss a single day. And every single day I put my stash in my locker. And then New Year's Day came and I said, well, it's been a year. I'm done with this. It was not rewarding for me. But the reasoning behind it was not strong enough because I was doing it to make him happy, not to make me happy. Folding my stash is very important to me. Unless it's soaking with sweat, I always, and in that case, I hang it up on my locker door. Folding my stash is important to me. I never just throw my stash, right? That's important to me. It shows respect to my stash. Putting it away, it does not for me because I like leaving it everywhere. I think it's because it makes me feel like this is my home here.
So the motivation was more
not
about
good.
was about me nagging the instructors. Wasn't about her actually wanting to accomplishing something.
I was also to set out to prove, like, okay, I can do this. I can do something consistently every day.
But it didn't really make the
It
habit
wasn't a strong enough reason.
because the why wasn't there. So if you're not getting your dopamine hit from that, well, she's saying any more though.
Well, yeah, you do get a dopamine hit because you do it, but you have to think about why you're doing it. Are you doing it because we told you to? Are you doing it because, oh, black sashes do that? Well, maybe that's not a strong enough reason for you. When
Yeah.
you really feel like you're doing something, maybe this is the wrong term for it, but if it's part of a ritual and that ritual feels like you're really connecting and it's really sacred and it's like almost like a form of worship, and that might have a religious connotation. But whatever it is that you do to like have a sacred thing, if it's not actually sacred to you, you won't get the dopamine hit for a very long time.
Mhm.
It has to be, you have to really feel integrated into it, and it has to be intrinsically rewarding as well. Like, and if it's not intrinsically rewarding enough, and it's really that important to you that you keep doing it, you got to make it more rewarding by stacking it with something else, like Sifu was saying. Like, if it's something you just like really have to do, like your taxes or something, whatever, then you got to stack it with something else.
Yeah, stacking.
Yeah.
I think Lacey mentioned that too. Habit
Yeah.
stacking. When it's a little thing, when it's a little add-on, it's not very difficult to do. But I was going to add something else to that. Well, so that takes us on though, but that takes us to the self-image, right? Part of the self-image is that why? Is that, you know, who am I now? Who do I want to be, right? You can't achieve beyond the self-image, right? And actually, Lacey, we talked about this today.
Yeah, for you, Amy. Okay.
Right? Taxes are very rewarding, we said it. She
Well,
says,
for me,
well,
I hate it, and so every time we pay our taxes, we go out and we like eat something. We eat out. We really reward ourselves. Like we make a day of like we paid our taxes. Like it's vacation time. So.
I don't like the T word. Anyway, where was I going with that?
Amy makes an art out of taxes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's her kung fu.
Self-image.
Self-image.
Why?
So
Yeah.
we were talking about the self-image today. That when you have to, the first thing you need to do really, if you're going to really bump up your level at anything, it's the self-image that's got to kind of come first. So when your self-image is set higher for yourself, and then you know if you really have it set, then your experience and evidence to reinforce that is going to get sucked into that vacuum. Okay, the self-image has to be there though, and if you don't improve your self-image, any progress along the way, you're probably going to self-sabotage because they're not congruent with the way you see yourself. Mm-hmm. So you need to be, you know, having that image in your head of who you want to be and making that as if it's now, and letting yourself be pulled into that vacuum, right? So the why is like, okay, well, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? And how is it integrated with who I want to be? Okay, so.
Well, and we were talking about where self-image comes from. Like, is it coming from somewhere else outside of you? Has your self-image been outsourced to someone else? Right?
Oh yeah, okay. So in a lot of cases it is. Like so our self-image is shaped by
Our parents?
our parents, any authoritative source,
Yeah.
right? Any authoritative source who would have told us something about ourselves, we're going to tend to believe it. That's one factor of it. So this again is its own three-legged stool. Okay, our self-image is created by authoritative source, repetition, and emotional content. Okay, so if you have an authoritative source, so say for example, you're at your birthday party and you're 8 years old, right, and all your friends are over, and you spill your juice on the table, and your mom says, "Oh, you're clumsy, you're so clumsy,"
Yeah.
right, and she says that in front of all your friends, and they all laugh, and now you've got this very strong negative emotion tied in, and it anchors in that you're a clumsy person because your authoritative source said it, right? It might have said it a few times, and it had that emotional content of everyone there witnessing. That's going to anchor it in. Now, a lot of people will take that and will say, well, that's right. See, I knew it was my mom's fault. I knew it was my mom's fault that I'm clumsy. See, you did this to me. No, that's not what I'm saying.
It doesn't have to be a blame game.
It doesn't have to be, it's not about blame. It's about understanding so we can move beyond it. So once you understand how easy it is
to shape your own.
to affect your self-image in that way, because it's been done, now you have to accept the reality that you can reshape your self-image based on those three things again, right? On repetition, on emotional content, and on that authoritative source. And now the authoritative source doesn't have to be someone in reality, right? Like you don't have to call up your mom and be like, "Mom, tell me I'm not lazy now." Or I'm not clumsy now. We got to fix this. You don't got to get her on the phone and yell at her. It's not her fault, right? I mean, it might be your fault, but it's not her responsibility to fix it. It's your responsibility to fix it, right? This is all subconscious mind work, and the subconscious mind doesn't differentiate between what's real and what's imagined in terms of building the self-image. So simply doing, mental theater work with your authoritative source repeatedly with emotional content, you can start to reprogram some of that stuff, and that's why we do so much meditation, right? Okay, you take a break.
Okay. We could do a whole podcast on this.
Yeah, this is a giant topic we decided to get into
today. And I think we should eventually, but about that self-image thing. But self-image, I think it's really important to work on your own sovereignty of authority in your life. Because if you think your self-image comes from elsewhere, it's always going to be lacking. It has to come from inside. Oh God. I had a teacher that used to tell me I would never amount to anything. I am pleased to report that she finally passed away last week. Oh God.
Could you just read that out again? Mr. Henderson, thank you for your chiming in. He says, if you didn't catch that, I had a teacher that used to tell me that I would never amount to anything. I am pleased to report that she finally passed away last week. So, you won that one. You outlasted her.
Well, this happens a lot. Like, whatever, if your authoritative source passed away, you can't very well go back to them. But you said you could, like, play
you could do that
mind.
internally.
Yeah.
So again, going through the meditation of that, having that authoritative source, just saying like, wow, I was wrong. Look at how much you've accomplished, right? And pointing at your accomplishments. That kind of stuff in your mind. Remember that people say, well, it's all in your head. Yeah, it is. It is in your head. That's not a bad thing. You don't brush that off.
Doesn't mean it's fake.
Exactly.
It's
all in your head means
else.
it's within you. It's within your control. All right.
This is getting rowdy up in
Yeah,
here.
this is a very, very good chat room, guys. Thanks for engaging. So, anyway, what I want to go back to the why, because that's what we got on. So Lacey was saying about making the bed. We don't have that dopamine source anymore. But you've got to factor in a really good why to that whatever it is you want to achieve, right? In order to do that, you have to be able to focus on what you want and focus on what you're moving away from. So you've got to have both of those directions going, right? Mm-hmm. I did that rope dart video about that. We were talking about that earlier, right? But basically, you have to have emotional content to what you're moving away from and what you're moving toward, right? So give me an example of an activity that we would need to do for self-cultivation.
Eat more vegetables.
Eat more vegetables. Okay. Does self-confidence play into self-image? Yes. Yes. The confidence comes comes from self-image, and also the self-image builds up the confidence. They're interdependent, right? But the self-confidence comes from, we say, the experience of success, right? So you've got to try things, succeed at them, and then you build up your confidence, right? But you have to have the self-image to try in the first place. So they kind of go together.
It comes from a feeling of security and control in your own life as well. So if you feel like you don't have control over yourself, then you have low self-confidence, because it literally means like faith in yourself. So if you can't even trust yourself or rely on yourself.
So what are some simple things you would recommend doing for someone who doesn't feel like they have that kind of authority over their life?
Well, yeah, empower yourself. I think what you were saying, let's go back, let's come back to this, because you were about to say something really good about the eating the vegetables thing,
Mhm.
and like,
Okay, pin in that.
yeah,
Go.
talk about the vegetables? Or talk
No,
about
this. What you
Okay.
want? Yeah,
Alright.
I'll pin the vegetables, and we'll get back to that. And you talk
Okay.
about where you're going with that.
with the self-confidence?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so self-confidence comes from a sense of authority in one's own life. So you have to look, this takes a lot of self-reflection, has been pivotal for myself, with my personal struggles too. So if you outsource what's right in your life to somebody else, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be religion, it could be what you think your parents think of you, it could be political, it could be anything. If you outsource it to somebody else, there's always gonna feel like this real sense of like not confidence. What's the opposite of that? Not self-confident.
I don't know.
I don't know.
There's a word. It's
Yeah,
not. It's not
it's
coming
like
to me
this,
right now.
it's like, you know, you just can't feel like you can fully relax and trust, right? And it's like anxiety, I guess, would be what it is. Fear, right? Or a sense of false self-confidence would be a thing too, like where you're overconfident,
Mhm,
like
mhm,
compensating. I guess.
mhm.
So what are some things you could do? I think just going and looking at where things come from. So why do I feel like I need to make my bed, for example, right? Was that something I did because my parents made me and they shamed me if I didn't do it? Is it coming from a place of shame? And a lot of times what happens is we try to rebel against that. So I'm not going to make my bed because, you know, my mom told me I had to do it, and I hate her for
I'm gonna
that.
put my sashway every day for a whole year just to prove that I can.
Yeah. And so it's never going to So that's, yeah, insecurity, there you go. And then when you go and you actually deal with that trauma of whatever, or shame, then you might now find out, it's like, then you get to that point, oh, I see why my mom was saying that I should do this, right? Like you come to your own reasoning. So you have to go out and like come up with your own reasons why, not other people's reasons why to do things or not to do things. I don't know. That's some inner work stuff we could talk about.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, because that goes right back to the why now. So now,
Yeah.
going back to, vegetables, but like moving down this path of away from something to something else is going to strengthen that confidence as well, because that's something that you're going to have within your control. But you have to have the why. The why gives you the emotional content. So to do that, we need to look at what we're moving away from, what you're moving towards.
Yes.
But the emotional anchoring into that, okay? So why do you want to,
This is a DBT skill.
why do you want to eat your vegetables?
So you make a pros and cons list
Okay,
for doing it and not doing it.
okay.
What's good about eating my vegetables?
Gonna be healthier.
You're gonna feel healthier.
You feel more energy,
Feel
more
more energy.
vitality,
What else? Like
better skin.
socially,
Yeah, better
too.
skin. Okay, so let's just start with the basic, and now go back the
Yeah.
other way. So what's gonna happen if I don't eat my vegetables?
I feel
Okay.
sluggish.
I'm gonna feel sluggish, right?
I feel embarrassed.
Embarrassed, okay. I don't feel energetic,
Yeah.
not good vitality,
Now you also have to
not
look
healthy.
at the pros and cons for not eating your vegetables too. What are the pros of not eating my vegetables?
I get to just eat whatever I want. I get the instant gratification.
Yeah. What are the cons of not eating your vegetables? What's bad about not eating the vegetables? So we talked about the cons of eating your okay, sorry, what are the cons of eating your vegetables?
Cons of eating my vegetables. They don't taste good.
Yeah.
I don't get that same enjoyment. I don't get that same gratification.
Yeah, so now you know the only reason you're not eating your vegetables is self-gratification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Recognize what it is you are feeling with both good and bad.
Scurvy.
Investigate why, and address the steps to change it. So
So
what?
you need to look at what's motivating you to not do it as well, not just what's motivating you to do it.
Yeah, that's like it's.
And then you know what you're running away from and what you're heading toward.
And that would, because that it has to be relative, like, what you're moving toward has to be different enough
Now you
from
have a
what you're
very
moving
clear
away
choice.
from. Like,
I'm
so,
choosing
so
self-gratification today.
there's the story about Les Brown tells a story about when he's walking down the neighborhood, and he walks by this front porch. These two old guys are sitting on the front porch on their couch on their front porch like they do in the South, and the hound dog's laying on the front porch and he's crying.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, mister, what's wrong with your dog?" And he's like, "Oh, he's just laying on a nail. He's crying because laying on a nail." He's like, "Well, why doesn't he get off it?" He said, "Doesn't hurt bad enough yet, right?" So, because there's an old dog, so it's going to hurt him to get up. It's also hurting him to lay on the nail. Whatever one hurts more, right? He's gonna take care of that. So once the nail hurts so much that it's hurting more than it would to get up off it, he's gonna get up off it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the simplified version of that. But what I was anyway, you want to keep going on that?
No, that was pretty much it. Like, why you're staying still, right? So why is the dog continuing to stay on the nail?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt bad enough.
What are the pros of staying on the nail?
It hurts less than getting off the nail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you at least know why now. That's your why right there.
So,
Chicken wing.
but so to take that further, because you want to add power to that why.
Yeah.
You want to add focus to the why. So the next step in is to add on the problem that you're moving away from, and then the benefit you're moving toward. But then the problem of the problem and the benefit to the benefit. Okay. So the problem, and you were going with this with like what implications are there. So again, so the problem with not eating my vegetables, I don't feel healthy, right? Okay. So what's the problem with that problem? Well, when I go out with friends and they want to go out and they want to, go rock climbing or something, I don't feel like I can do that because I can't keep up because I'm in bad shape, right? Okay, so what's the problem with that problem? Well, all my friends are going out and doing something, I'm not a part of it. Now I feel socially isolated. Now I feel alone. So that's a very sad feeling. It's sad, right? We don't want to feel like that.
You're really getting to the root now.
Now we get to the root. Now we feel much more motivation to not be there. Now we go to the other end of that. So what's the benefit of eating my vegetables? I'm going to feel healthier. Okay, what's the benefit of that? I'm going to feel like going with my friends to wherever they're going, whatever crazy adventures they're going on. What's the benefit to that? I'm going to feel accepted, and I'm going to feel really good being, part of this group, right? And I'll feel happy. Okay, so this is much more motivating. Feeling sad and alone, or feeling like you're part of a group and being accepted, right? That's a much bigger kind of it draws it puts the emotional content from what into what you want to move away from, what you want to move towards.
So yeah, and I think you can expand that dimension even more by looking at now why is it good to do it? Why is it bad not to do it? But now let's look at why is it good not to eat your vegetables? Like, go really deep into that. Like, what are you really getting out of not eating your vegetables?
Chicken wings. Delicious chicken wings.
I don't have to go to the store as often, right? It's easier, right? Like, I feel like,
some people say it was cheaper.
Really look
Some
at the
people complain
pros
about the
at
price
not
of
eating your vegetables.
Yeah.
Like, and then really look at the cons of eating your vegetables. Like, really you got to look at everything. If you just look at the habit and why it's good, why it's bad, but you also have to look at what activity you're choosing instead, like the bad thing. What's the pros and cons of just eating chicken wings and chips every day? Because then you can really get down. Why am I doing this? I'm having like shame about it, right? I'm punishing myself. Like, you know that there's deeper reasons to like get away from it or towards it. I don't know, and I think it just brings more clarity.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, and the more clarity you have.
Or I'm only doing this to please somebody else. And then you at least are very honest about it.
Yeah. Well,
there's a chart I can share for that.
That's pretty good. I think we covered it. For a podcast, we could go into either one. All three of these things for another hour each. But that gives us definitely a good starting point. So, choose your activity, one you can be passionate about. Develop a habit. We didn't go too much into habit, but basically conditioning the habits, we kind of just brushed on it. But you start off with something small, right? You start off with something small, and you do it continually for, if you want to improve your diet. I think it was Jim Rohn said, just like at the end of the day, eat an apple. Like, just do that. Just eat an apple at the end of the
small,
day,
go bigger.
every day, and do that for like, 5 days. And if 5 days in a row you can do that, you're going to feel pretty good about, this simple, small little habit. And then get that to, 20 days, 30 days, and then like Lacey said, then stack something on with it, right? Every time I have that apple at the end of the day, then I, get ready for bed by doing this, this, and this. I brush my teeth, I, prep my clothes for tomorrow, whatever it is. So stack things on top of that once you've got it anchored in. But it's got to be bit by bit, so you condition that behavior gradually. If you try to condition behavior too quickly, it's just going to fall through.
Yeah, Lacey, that's exactly what you want to do. Deepen the why until it brings you to tears, right? Then you've struck the chord.
Then you have your emotional content.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's very healing. And then things become I wouldn't say like easy, but it becomes natural and automatic, right? You can make a more intuitive, heart-centered decision.
Mm-hmm.
And not just, you're not bypassing.
I forgot to tell you guys, while they're watching here, I just got good feedback on here, but I did put the Zoom on. Reminder, guys, if you're watching and you're a current student, I always put Zoom on the classroom at the same time. So if you ever want to chime in live and ask questions via Zoom, it's your same classroom code.
Yeah,
I
same
forgot to
thing.
mention that before. Today would have been a good
It's
day
like a
because
radio. Everyone will hear your voice and stuff.
because there's so many of you on, it would have been good. But anyway, next time.
Next.
Thanks for your input, guys. This has been a lot of fun with all your feedback and input. Much more fun. This is probably the funnest podcast we did yet. So, thanks for joining us. And anything else before we close out?
Yeah, just leave in the comments if there's anything you want us to riff about in our next
Podcast,
next
which hopefully will
podcast.
be next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not on Tuesday, it'll
Then
be
it's
on
on
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah. Embodied, you got it.
All right. Okay. Thanks for joining us, guys. Have a good week, and we'll see you on episode 8
Or class.
or class.